Yeah, I wanted them to think about it for themselves, and the nature of the discussion we had in class was reflective. So we were thinking about how language affects our lives. And the thing is, when you start off with, this guy sucks, don't listen to anything he says, I mean, there's going to be people right there who will not say anything now. In the eyes of Rambucana and Pimlott and Joel, the people who brought me into the meeting, that's what was wrong, is I didn't condemn him right off the bat.
You should have condemned him.
Yes.
But then you don't get into the critical thinking ideas.
Yeah, no, they don't want it to be critically thought of. They said there's no debate. Their position was that I had done something so terribly wrong, I'd basically committed a crime. I had committed transphobia, and that's what they told me. That's why I was there, because I committed transphobia. I violated the gendered violence policy of the university, just by playing the video.
Are you transphobic?
No, I'm not at all.
So what I'm going to present to you right now, this is a very just slipshod, ramshackle video, because I think that this story needs to go out into every place that it can. I have some audio of a TA at the University of Wilfrid Laurier. Her name is Lindsay Shepard, and she was pulled in to a meeting with her advisors or somebody up in the administration, or a number of people in the administration, for having shown a video of Jordan Peterson debating the gender issues, or the gender pronoun issues. The full discussion is in the description, but so I'm going to be stopping and starting it and commenting on these things as I see fit. So here we go.
Why that might have been seen as problematic by some of the students, maybe even threatening?
I don't see how someone would rationally think it was threatening. I could see how it might challenge their existing ideas, but for me, that's the spirit of the university, is challenging ideas that you already have. And I don't know who this came from. I would be interested to see the original complaint or complaints, because I don't really have any context, as to what exactly their problem was.
Sorry, can I?
The thing is, can you shield people from those ideas? Am I supposed to comfort them and make sure that they are insulated away from this? Is that what the point of this is? Because to me, that is so against what a university is about. So against it. I was not taking sides. I was presenting both arguments.
Okay. So the thing is about this is, if you're presenting something like this, you have to think about the kind of teaching climate that you're creating.
All right. Teaching climate that you're creating, not a learning environment, but a teaching environment that she is creating. By presenting different viewpoints on one issue, be it a contentious issue or not, they're not concerned about the learning environment, they're concerned about the teaching environment. What that tells me right out the gate is that they're concerned with the ideas that are being put into the heads, the ideas that are from on high being instilled or programmed into the heads of the students. It's not about learning, it's about teaching. And teaching without learning is indoctrination.
And this is actually, these arguments are counter to the Canadian Human Rights Code.
This is what Jordan Peterson brought up a year and a half ago, or whenever it was, that these laws are going to be used to stifle free speech, which goes to say not just free speech, but to stifle any sort of dissent. The ideas themselves are wrong, and speaking them aloud is a criminal act. He said that very explicitly.
Ever since, and I know that you talked about C-16, ever since this passed, it is discriminatory to be targeting someone due to their gender identity or gender expression.
So listen to that. Targeting somebody, not discussing ideas, not targeting ideas, but targeting people. So words are now violence, and this sort of law base, or this sort of ideology or way of codifying behavior, now words or opinions are targeting people. Maybe that's the case outside of this, but they're using that to speak about, to construe even talking about the ideas as an act of violence, as something that's not allowed, something that you can actually prosecute.
So bringing something like that up in class, not critically, and I understand that you're trying to
It was critical.
No.
I introduced it critically.
How so? Like, as in,
like I said, it was in the spirit of debate.
okay, in the spirit of the debate is slightly different than being like, okay, this is like a problematic idea that we want to unpack.
The spirit of debate is different than this is a problematic idea that we want to attack, right? So already, instead of learning, this is teaching, right? And teaching divorced from learning is indoctrination. And the whole argument, I think, from just this far, is that these administrators or whoever they are, these deans or even these advisors of her, are saying that your job is not to help them learn or to facilitate learning, but to teach. And what we're going to teach is this sort of viewpoint. And any sort of attack of that viewpoint, any sort of criticism of that viewpoint that is not out the gate framed as wrong, as problematic, is, if you don't do that, then you are effectively forwarding the violence that are inherent in these critical ideas. And violence to what? To somebody else's ideas or somebody else's lived experience or whatever.
But that's taking sides.
Yes.
Like, it's taking sides for me to be like, oh, look at this guy. Like, everything that comes out of his mouth is BS, but we're going to watch anyway.
Okay. So I understand the position that you're coming from and your positionality. Positionality is analogous to what in olden times was called heretical, right? But the reality is that it has created a toxic climate for some of the students. He will not. I doubt that he'll ever define what he means by toxic. It's satanic or it's heretical. It's something that it's an atmosphere. It's a spiritual reality that we're going to implement or that we perceive as real. The reality, he says, the reality is that this is toxic, right?
Many.
It's great.
Ooh, like how many?
Okay.
One?
May I speak?
I have no concept of like how many people complain, like what their complaint was. You haven't showed me the complaint. Yes, I understand that this is upsetting, but there's also confidentiality matters. The number of people is confidential? Yes. Yeah.
The number of people is confidential. Now, what does that do to numbers? Numbers are no longer a completely abstracted, impersonal sort of rubric. They are personal. The most impersonal things that we as humans, as just humans themselves, have so far come up with are no longer anonymous. They are by definition anonymous, and now they are confidential. And what does that mean? It means that they have emotional content, that they're somehow covered in these FERPA laws, or they're protecting identities, but they're not. They're not, actually. He's using these numbers. He's obscuring numbers by making a power play. But underneath that, in that rhetorical trick, what he's doing is he's using numbers as though they are not confidential, as though they are therefore personal, because everything is personal in this ideology. And by personal, I do not mean individual. I mean completely based on power plays.
Yeah. Is one or multiple students who've come forward saying that this is something that they were concerned about and that it made them uncomfortable. You're perfectly welcome to your own opinions, but when you're bringing it into the context of the classroom, that can become problematic.
Positionality, problematic. That's soft heresy, right? That's what's softer than heresy? Heresy will get you banned, but sacrilege, right? It's like you're treading on very, very iffy ground here, according to our entire framework, our entire cathedral of belief.
And that can become something that creates an unsafe learning environment for students.
But when they leave the university.
Okay, now he brings up unsafe learning environment, right? Earlier I said he was talking about teaching environment, but now he's switching his language.
They're going to be exposed to these ideas. So I don't see how I'm doing a disservice to the class by exposing them to ideas that are really out there. And I'm sorry I'm crying. I'm stressed out because this to me is so wrong. It's so wrong.
Can I mention the gendered violence?
All right, disclaimer. I'm on fire for this, probably because it's a young woman crying, and that has stirred up my mammalian or probably reptilian brain, right, of protectivism or whatever. So full disclosure. But what did this second person just say, or third person just say?
Gendered and sexual violence policy.
Gendered and sexual violence policy, right? I already said that this is they're construing ideas as violence. And we've already heard this over and over and over again, that people are doing this. In my series, in my Evergreen series, the students are doing this. But once people have power start to do this, then it becomes a way of controlling everybody else. Because who has the monopoly on violence? The state has monopoly on violence. Therefore, those who are in authority can declare what violence is and what violence is not. And they alone are the ones who are able to be violent, according to whatever they mean by violence, which here is saying what you can and cannot say, or can and cannot even share, can or cannot even talk about within the learning or teaching environment.
Yeah, please.
So under that, gendered violence doesn't just include sexual violence, but it also includes targeting folks based on gender. So that includes transphobia, biphobia, homophobia. All those sorts of things are protected under the policy, and so those are things that Laurier has upheld as values, as well as the Ontario Human Rights Code. And so those are things that we're responsible for not impacting our students in that way, and not spreading transphobia in that way.
Okay, so what I have a problem with is I didn't target anybody. Who did I target?
Trans folks.
How? By telling them ideas that are really out there? By telling them that? By telling them? Really?
It's not just telling them. In legitimizing this as a valid perspective.
Legitimizing. Here's another one of these code words. What does legitimizing mean? Well, there's what he means on the surface, but then there's the undercurrent, there's the implicit meaning, is that even giving a platform to these ideas is legitimizing them. Even inspecting ideas critically, even looking at ideas that we find wrong, you're legitimizing the ideas. So in effect, what does that do? That means that you can't even look at things that you find problematic or you find wrong. You can't even look at those, because even looking at that which you find wrong is somehow legitimizing it, right? And how does that work in reality? If there is a bus barreling down the road, and I'm not saying that Jordan Peterson's ideas are a bus barreling down the road, but let's just say, if there's a bus barreling down the road, do you legitimize the bus by looking at it? Or do you just say, no, I don't want to legitimize the bus, I'm going to keep on with my path? That's not how reality works. That's how lemmings work. And lemmings don't actually jump off cliffs. That's a myth. Disney propaganda machine made us think that lemmings were leapers off cliffs. But anyways, that's how you get people to start to jump off cliffs, by saying, no, we're not going to legitimize any sort of system except for the path that we're on. The path that we're on is the only legitimate thing, and therefore the only thing that you can look at, the only thing that you can iteratively believe in. And see, this is the thing. They're cutting out the option to disbelieve. And by disbelieve, I mean critically evaluate, right? They're saying, no, you can't even critically evaluate. You can only believe in what we believe in. And anything that is not inside of that, you have to shun. You have to say is false, out of hand.
As this is another valid perspective.
In a university, all perspectives are valid.
That's not necessarily true, Lindsay.
Well, this is something that's being debated in current society, and I don't feel the need to shield people from what's going on in society. Like,
okay.
To imagine that this is happening in university, it's bad.
Okay, so just to give you a context, also within all of this that is happening, Laurier's being blanketed with white supremacist posters currently. There's another debate in society, which is whether or not North America should be a set of white nationalist states, and that it should be ethnically cleansed of other people.
Is it Goodwin? Is this Goodwin's law? Could it be?
That is also a current debate in society. Would you show something in your tutorial that you had white supremacists and non-white supremacists debating whether or not other people should live in North America. Is that something that you would show?
If that was related to the content of the week and we were talking about right-wing speech bubbles, maybe.
Okay.
It depends on the content. Like, I mean, if there's really ideas that are existing out there like that, then, I mean, look, the thing is, like, I don't see what's transphobic about showing a video of Jordan Peterson. He's a real person. He's out there.
He is a real person, but he is a real person who has engaged in targeted behavior that, or
Targeted behavior, or
targeting of trans students in a particular, like basically doxing them, if you know the term, like giving out their personal information so that they will be attacked, harassed, so that death threats will find them.
I don't know if that's true or not.
This is something that he has done to his own students. He has done to other students. And this is also something...
His students or other students? I need a reference, and I'm sure he didn't provide one.
...thing that the students are aware of. So this is basically like playing, not to kind of do the thing where everything is kind of compared to Hitler, but this is like neutrally playing...
Not to do this, but...
a speech by Hitler or Milo Yiannopoulos from Gamergate. This...
He went to Gamergate! Who is this guy?
This is the kind of thing that departmentally, in terms of like critical communication studies and in terms of the...
Critical communication studies. This is the thing in departmentally and in critical communication studies.
Course of what we're trying to do is diametrically opposed to everything that we've been talking about in the lectures.
This might be your professor. So talking about things is diametrically opposed to what we're trying to do. So this goes back to my original point. This teaching environment is indoctrination. This learning environment is just sucking up the information, right? This is a I don't know what it is. There's got to be a great metaphor that you guys can help me come up with. But it's like, okay, here's the information, and then there's the brain, and you put the information in the brain, and then you make sure that it fits right in there. The brain doesn't do any work, it other than just sucking up the information, and then you go on. It's like this some sort of perverse assembly line of information. But the brain itself is not something that is an object. It is a mechanism. It needs to practice. It's something that we use, right? It is a tool. It's the most magnificent tool that nature has probably ever created, so far as I know. But they don't want it to be used. They do not want the brain to be used. They want it to be molded.
Was this one of the reasons that you wanted to do this? Because it was like a reaction to the lecture content?
No.
Now he's accusing her of being somehow rebellious.
We were talking about gendered language, and I was asking them to structure sentences using they or using his or her. And then we talked about the societal context of it.
Okay.
So I don't get why I'm being seen as transphobic by proxy of me just saying, just stating, just exposing people to an idea. I don't get how that label is not attached to me. I really don't.
It's more about the effect rather than the intention. If that, obviously that wasn't your intention, but nevertheless, it disturbed and upset students enough.
So everything's about those students who are disturbed? Everything is catered to them?
Can I just offer a different perspective?
Oh.
Was this a tutorial based on looking at grammar?
Mm-hmm.
And it was focused on the use of pronouns and the use of grammar.
Mm-hmm.
Is grammar not something that's not really subject to debate?
Is grammar not something that is not subject to debate?
The they and the his or her, it's a huge debate right now. Can we use they in the singular?
Yeah, but you do know that they has actually been used in the singular.
Yeah, that was...
They have been actually used in the singular.
was in the video I showed to the class, and that's just a point I made. And the thing is, what's kind of funny is I disagree with Jordan Peterson. I disagree, but you guys seem to think that I'm like pro Jordan Peterson or something. It's pretty funny.
Well, do you understand how what happened was contrary to? Sorry, Adrian, what was the policy? The gendered and sexual violence policy? Like, do you understand how...
But, sorry, what did I violate in that policy?
So, gender-based violence, transphobia in that policy. Causing harm to trans students by framing their identity as invalid, or their pronouns as invalid.
Or something like
potentially invalid.
So I
potentially. Now, it's not just that the law is stupid, but that the law will be wielded by stupid people. I'm sorry, I made a promise earlier several times that I wouldn't call people stupid. And they're not stupid, but they're incredibly dangerous. What is going on right now is incredibly dangerous. It's incredibly dangerous, because what's going to happen is that people with a certain ideology that aligns with the laws that they're creating are going to use those laws to squash everybody with a different ideology, right? And by stupid, I mean they become tools of their ideology. And by stupid, I mean they're going to shut down debate. They're going to shut down the using of our minds as anything other than tools of this ideology, right? So these people are the tools of their ideology. They have submitted their belief system or their believing faculty to a belief system. And so, therefore, they think that everybody else needs to submit their believing faculty to this belief system. And a system is fucking dead. It can be marvelous, it can be effectual, but it is dead. A bureaucracy is dead. The only thing that is alive, the only thing that feels joy and ecstasy and pleasure and pain is the individual. And that system, any given system, can provide that individual with longevity of life, with warmth, with water, with food, etc., etc., etc. The system is there to serve the individual. The individual is not there to serve the system. And these people, so far as they want everybody to serve their system, are worse than stupid.
Which is under the Ontario Human Rights Code, a protected thing, and also something that Laurier holds as a value.
Okay. So, by proxy of me showing you the video, I'm transphobic and I caused harm and violence. So be it. I can't do anything to control that.
Okay, so that's not something that you have an issue with? The fact that happened? Like,
oh, God.
I mean,
I
know in my heart, and I know I expressed to the class that I'm not transphobic. And if any of them, I don't know what they said, but I don't think I gave away any kind of political position of mine. I remained very neutral. And,
that's kind of the problem.
That's kind of the problem. That's kind of the problem. This is not kind of a problem. This is a huge problem. This is a huge problem. I believe in education. I don't believe in defunding education, but we need to get this stuff out of our education system, and then out of our law system, keep it away from our law system, and keep ourselves attuned to the manipulation of culture according to an ideology that is already tyrannical. Even this small, it's already tyrannical. And so that's my blood boiling episode for the evening. Good night.